Grassi, the pastor of St. Gertrude. If he'll go next, I thought it would be very good diocesan priest to be sandwiched in between the two religious orders. So.
Good evening. It's good to be with you tonight and celebrate wonderful heritage. Somebody once said they took blood from me at the hospital and there was tomato sauce in the DNA. So. My story starts in 1941. I wasn't born until 1947. 1941, my sister, who was in kindergarten at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church, not Melrose Park, but Belmont and Broadway, we'll get to that in a moment, came home and announced to my mom, as my mom was on her knees scrubbing the bathtub, that she wanted to be a nun. And my mom lifted her eyes to heaven and said, "Please, Lord, don't take my daughter." 6 years later, my sister died of polio and those terrible epidemics. And to her dying day, my mother thought she was being punished by God. Added to that thought of being punished by God was I was born 10 months after my sister died. I was the replacement child. And it was going to be my job to fill that particular gap. I was the fourth son after my sister. All four of my brothers and I went to the seminary, the Diocesan High School Seminary. By the time I got to it, it was quickly north, it was also quickly south. My oldest brother said I was only going there because I wanted to be like him, and bet me $25 I would never make it to ordination. In my closing comments at my first Mass, Our Lady of Mount Carmel, I made him pay up. It was kind of preordained, I guess, that I was going to be ordained. My mother also tells the story. I was born at Columbus Hospital. My mother, in her simple peasant way, wanted no medication, nothing to dull the pain. She wanted to be there for my birth. And at one particular point, she let out a bit of a scream, to which one of the wonderful sisters said to her, "Shut up, you had your fun, give this one to the Lord." My life has been, therefore, an incredible struggle between the peasant faith of my parents and the theology I learned in the seminary, and somehow trying to bring them together. I'm still working on it after 41 years of priesthood. My dad was born in a small farming village called Correggio, right down the hill from the village of Alberobello in the province of Bari in Italy, where the beautiful Trulli home. My mom was born in a Trulli right next door to the church. In Alberobello, my dad was born on a Trulli on a farm right down the hill. Blessed to have been in both of those places, and families still living in both of those places even today. It was a beautiful part of the world, but my dad's grandfather and his great-grandfather both outlived their first wives, and so married again and had two sets of children, and the family farm kept getting subdivided until there wasn't enough for my dad and his brothers. So they left their lands to the youngest, my Uncle Mike, and they came to the United States after a little side trip to do some fighting in North Africa. They came and they ended up doing work in the coal mines in Pennsylvania when a chunk of coal fell on my dad and knocked out his two front teeth. He made me promise that when he died, I'd make sure the gold teeth were still in his mouth when we put him in the ground. They wandered to southern Illinois and then up to Chicago. They opened a few corner grocery stores. In the year I was born in 1947, they opened up the fourth largest grocery store on the north side of Chicago, a couple blocks north of Wrigley Field. Don't call it a fruit stand. That's what I would hear from my teachers at the seminary all the time. It wasn't. Actually, for guys who had no education, they were brilliant. Before Peapod, you could call in, and they had a girl that would take orders and fill the orders. And we had delivery trucks that would take you to the homes. And I once asked if I could take the ride because there was one house on Sheridan Road that every 2 weeks ordered $50 worth of food in a case of Cutty Sark. I just wanted to see who those people were. And you're interested. If you know the people from Barrie, when somebody says you're from Barrie, everybody goes, and I think that's really true, and it speaks a lot about the faith of the people. The land was hard, living was hard, even when they came to this country it was hard, and the hard-headedness made them very successful. So I made it through the seminary. Somehow my brothers didn't. They went on, got married, had their families, are into great-grandchildren now. I do have a grandnephew named Dominic. My niece said, Dominic, if he was the first, we never would have had any more. There's something in the name, and again, preordained. Dominic Grassi, the fat one belonging to the Lord. That's a translation of that. Every village, every town in Italy, you go through the cemeteries, you'll see a Grassi family. They almost all have one. It was a sign of honor. I bet you had enough money to have meat on your bones, or a thyroid problem, whatever it is. And so it was all in the cards for me to become a priest, I guess. I think a lot of it came from working in the family grocery store. We all had to work. That was preordained, no pun intended. We started when we were about 10 or 11 or 12 years old. We started fronting the cans on the shelf. It was one of the first self-service grocery stores in the city with carts. People didn't know how to use them. They had to be taught on how to put food in the cart and make choices for themselves. And then after that, you became a bagger. And after a bagger, you became, you worked in the produce department. And then after that, you were sent away for a weekend to the National Cash Register School on Michigan Avenue and learned how to ring the cash register. I came in fastest, second fastest and most accurate, because I could figure out if there were 6 oranges for 49 cents, how much, if somebody brought 5 up, how much you charged them. Dollar each. I've been privileged to go back to Riverdale for the feast day a number of times. Patrons of the hometown of Riverdale, the Santa Medici, Cosmos Dania, the healers, the doctors, and they're not even from Italy. They're on the other side, they're east. And so a good chance that there is some Iranian blood flowing through us here. We can't trace it back as far as we would like, but that there is some of that there. But they were interesting saints to me. My mom would regale me in all the stories, all the legends. And there was the good brother and the bad brother. And the good brother was Damien. He was gentle, he was kind. Cosmas was the mean one. He was he just, he was kind of mean for a saint. The story goes, when they went up to heaven, St. Peter said, I only got room for one of you on my list. And so, and they said, which one? And he said, Cosmas. So Cosmas said, okay, I'm coming. And then he pushed Damien ahead of him and walked in. You take care of your own is part of that message there, because you love them so very, very much. And that was very, very important to all of us. And so as I watched my dad and my uncles run the grocery store, you just start to absorb things. About 3 blocks away on Clark Street, there was a very large laundry, one of those almost factory-like laundries. People would leave their clothes to be picked up in the alleys and the bags, and they'd be washed and sent back home. And most of the employees there were African-American. And they would come to the store on Friday night after getting their paychecks on Friday and shop. And some of the white customers didn't like that. They didn't want to see those people in the store. And I remember one of them confronting my father. And my dad looked at him very gently and said, money isn't white, it isn't black, it's green. Very pragmatic. And after the customer left threatening to boycott the store, my dad did something very simple. There used to be a 50-cent check cash and charge. He dropped it for all the African-American customers. Didn't say anything to anybody. That was his way of dealing with things. There always was a sense of justice that grew out of that very peasant first Festa Italianas that took place, one of the very first, my mom got into the papers because of it. Because she got absolutely, totally berserk upset. Because she went past the dunk tank that they had set up. And they had a sign on it, "Dunk the Melon John." And my mother said, "You low-class people, you're making us all look bad." She took the sign down and tore it up. And there's a reporter from the Sun-Times, took her aside and said, "Was that a pejorative comment?" And my mom said, "It means eggplant. What do you think?" I was so proud of that little gal. She only stood about this tall. I was 21 before I realized she wasn't 6 feet tall. And it was all a very simple faith that was there. It was something that was part of our lives. The calendars every year that came from Italy, from the hometown. The monies that would be set so family could carry the statues on the feast of Cosmos and Damian through the village. My grandmother, Nona, taking me to Columbus Hospital almost every month to the chapel, to the shrine there, and saying a prayer there. It was very, very real for us. And because of that, I began to see in my parents how you show your love. You show your love through working hard for those you love. My parents worked really very, very hard for my brothers and I, especially hard after losing a child. They continue to work hard for us and began to realize that if we love our God, and we love the people of God, we've got to work hard for them and with them. And that's been kind of my overriding vision of what it means to be a priest. Just love the people of God. Work with them, enjoy them, share your stories, share their stories. The stories are what are so important. And we still, to this day, with the parents gone, we still sit around the table after the pasta is gone for hours telling the stories. And when you tell the stories, the layers come off, don't they? I found a little booklet once. It was sayings from my grandmother in Italian. And I read one of them to my mom. And the saying that I read to her translated into English, "I'm the one chopping the onion and you're the one crying." And she smiled, and it was maybe a year or two later, we're all sitting around the table, and that story came up. She said, "Now I'm going to tell you what the real saying was." They cleaned up the book, she said. This is the real saying. And it's one that stayed with me now.